Paying more attention to what was being said, the blemish took center stage.
We still want to look. So we are constantly saying, oh, I want to look. No, I shouldn't look. And all of that is depleting our resources.
The study found that on average, interviewers recalled 27% less of what was said by candidates with facial blemishes than by candidates without one. Because of this, people with blemishes scored 10% lower in evaluation.
This isn't just the burden of the facially stigmatized individual. So it's not just about what can that individual do, but what sort of policies can we have to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves by always hiring the most attractive, unblemished individual for the job.
Hebel found that employers discriminated against candidates with facial markings on a subconscious level, confirming an age-old truth. Looks matter.
So that was a report by Reuters along with Stanford University. So you can see that what they did was they looked at a lot of candidates and they found that if there was a blemish on the face of the person they were interviewing, it definitely took away from the details of the interview and they had less chances of making a better impact. So what is the perception of beauty? So when Satya asked me, can you talk about the Western trends and if India is going to follow the West? Well, in most things, I think India was following the West, and now we can see that the West is trying to follow India, especially with our natural wellness fields, yoga, Ayurveda, naturopathy, etc. But the perception of beauty that we have today is mainly because of all of this. This is a great video that was done by Dove, and I'd like you to see this.
Great quiet, please. Camera's rolling. And we're recording sound. It's slated.
It's an average school teacher. So in that video, what they did was they took an average school teacher who taught kids in the middle school, and then they photoshopped her picture, as you saw, and that hoarding was right in the parking lot of the school where she teaches. And none of the school kids or the parents were able to realize that the school teacher they see on a daily basis was the model on the hoarding. So this is what we have as in terms of perception of beauty, and it's quite distorted because we all aim for perfection, and there is no perfection except a few maybe. So just getting down to, would India follow all of these trends? Well, it does come down to economics. And according to a study, which was the India's New Opportunities of 2020, with the Indian Management Association, with the Boston Consulting Group, and the CII, what they found was that they said that there will be 40 million new jobs which are going to be created in India by 2020. And at least a revenue increase of 200 billion in revenue. Why is this important? This is important because if there's jobs, there's increased spending culture in the economy. That means people are going to find avenues to spend. And if we look at the compounded annual growth, the estimation is at about 20%, and it's expected that Indian market alone should supposedly reach $100 billion in 2015 with the current 65 billion scenario. So when we go into all of these and we look at the GDP spend, it's about 4.1% to 5.2% of the GDP that India spends on healthcare. And it is the third largest contributor in the market. So what this says is that it's eventually going to spill out to non-essential healthcare. So when I talk about cosmetic dermatology, it's aspirational medicine. That's what I call it. It's not essential like we had cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, like the lifespan clinic, or the cancer care, which is all essential. We're aspirational medicine, and aspirations can only happen if somebody has that pocket deep enough to pull out the money from. So that's where all of this plays a value. And India is already doing a good inroad into healthcare just because we have better health infrastructure and we have better pricing, which seems to be clicking with the Indian audience today. So if we look at the target age group, this is very important for a cosmetic industry. The reason is our target is typically the younger crowd. It's not the aging population. And if we look at India, we have 26% of our population in the 16 to 60-year-old bracket and 29% in 0 to 15-year bracket. So that means we have a younger population. This is the population that is going to spend in future. This is the population that's going to have more impact because of all the visual aids that we have around us. So that is our target audience. And if you compare it to all the other countries, India and China to some extent, just because of the huge population that we have a better chance at cosmetic dermatology inroads. What is the indicator for our market? You know, in India, nobody starts off going to a dermatologist first. The first place they go to is the beauty salon. It's like their mother will take their daughter for their first wax or the first facial. It's almost like an induction ritual in India. And then from there, when people get their own pocket money, etc., they'll go into specialized hair care. So they will go to a hair salon. Then they will think of going to a nail salon. Nobody who does not have their face bleached or legs waxed is going to go and get their nails done. So it is a progression and it is a continuum. So you have a nail salon which will progress, then you'll see that the spas spring up everywhere. Today we see that there's chains of spas and chains of beauty salons and hair salons all across the country. It's mushroomed. It seems to be hitting the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities, which will say that the market is fairly getting saturated. So what next in the wheel, which is non-surgical cosmetic interventions or cosmetic dermatology as we commonly call it, or cosmetic medicine. So that it would be the next stage. Then would be the cosmetic surgery. It's very rare that you'll see somebody go straight in for cosmetic surgery without having tried the non-surgical approaches, at least in India, because we have a lot of various schools of medicine in play here. What are the positives that say that this trend is on the pickup? You know, it's the change in the attitude, the behavior, and the economical status of our target audience, which is the Indian population. It is also the educational level. We know that education is reaching all far and wide, and a lot of kids in India are getting educated abroad now, so it is westernizing them in some principles. We're also talking about the awareness and the health consciousness. If there is a boom in the beauty industry at the base of the pyramid, obviously it is going to reach the top eventually. When at the top sits your medical cosmetic field. And we're talking about also an increased disposable income. I was reading the papers the other day and I saw that they're saying that this year you could have a hike in salary as much as 15 to 20% because they want to retain talent, whereas for the last 3 years it was just a 10% hike. So you can see that there is increased disposable income, and also there's a lot of untapped territories like tier 2, tier 3, but let's say tier 1 itself, our urban India itself is quite untapped, and it is the age of digital media. So obviously your marketing costs go down a lot, so these are all positive trends for us. What are the negatives? The negative is it's a capital intensive industry. There is inflation that we have to take into account always. Also again, lack of trained super specialty medical personnel. It's not a field where you could just take somebody off medical school and put them in place. It's a place where they have to come with some kind of specialized training if you want to be a good service provider here. And currently everything is located in tier 1 cities. And of course, like I think our previous speaker, Mr. Jain said, you know, doctors don't understand standardization. They don't understand regulatory norms. All they understand is egos and their salary that they're going to take home. So I think with that mentality has to change among the doctor community also. And the key influencers, when we look at our target audience, they get influenced by people around them. They are influenced by themselves because what they read and what they saw, what they heard, etc., but by their spouse and their partner, A lot of times you'll see that in our industry, if they come in for a consultation, they'll usually bring somebody with them for the consult. And that person, you know, has to be included into your counseling session because they're going to help this person make the decision. Family, friends. Friends and colleagues always tend to have more of an influence than the family does a lot of times. Celebrity endorsements do help, as do advertisements. The Indian demographic trends show that there is a growing spending power. So it's a growing spending power among the youngsters and the middle-age group. And because of this key spending culture that they have, they're going to have to look at new avenues to spend their money on. And this is where you'll see that they start diverging their funds into aspirational medicine. There is a lot of working women today, and with the growth of the working women in the corporate sector, they have a lot of resources at their disposal where they can freely spend on themselves, and they don't have to look towards their spouse or their family for monetary support for any of these treatments. And there is rising urbanization. They say that about 300 million people will get urbanized every few years. And if that happens, there is a rising urbanization of people. And with this, that means there's a huge group being added to our target audience. And the male grooming industry is growing at a speedy rate of about 32%. And it's expected to hit 5,270 crores in 2015, just male grooming products we're talking about. So this is another untapped territory for the cosmetic industry. And also the growing beauty consciousness across the age group. You know, people are living a lot longer now because of the health consciousness and because they're taking care of themselves, and they always want to look as good as possible till the end. Nobody wants to die ugly if they can look beautiful. So when we talk about Indian trends, this is a survey that was done in 2007, and then they found in 2007 that 65% of the people only take care of their skin, and we're talking about an urban population here. And then 74% of them will take care of their hair. So they'll spend more on their hair than they do on their skin needs, and 32% will try something that seems very novel and out of ordinary, and only 39% do it on a regular basis. So this is the kind of population trends that we deal with. So what does premium beauty really stand for? In our industry, when we talk premium beauty, it's not lasers. Lasers are regular, but premium beauty is really injectables when we talk in terms of premium beauty. And that's an industry that's always on the growth phase. And you can say it's reached a point of saturation in some of the Western countries. And you know, in the Western countries, 7.3% is the growth expected. And they typically want to maintain this kind of growth in the US. But we are the developing markets. You know, the BRIC report says it all. China and India are hugely popular with all of these pharma companies as targets because we are going to be the developing market and we're going to start imbibing more of this. So if you look, the Asia Pacific region actually has the highest growth at 12%. And Europe has the least at 3%. Latin America is in fact higher than USA. And we're talking about the premium beauty market segment here. And in 2018, they feel that of the global beauty market, US will have 45% share. And Asia will have 21%, out of which it'll be China, India, Japan, and South Korea, which are the major players in our industry here. So if you look at what were the top surgical procedures in 2013, this is in the US because India doesn't have such good collected data as yet, but this is from the American Society of Plastic Surgery. You'll see liposuction still stands at #1. And in India also, liposuction is the most wanted surgical procedure. When we look at non-surgicals, in the States, it's botulinum toxin and injectables, followed by hyaluronic acid, then it's hair removal. In India, it's the opposite. Hair removal stands at #1, skin microdermabrasion and skin rejuvenation stands at 2 and 3, and then we have Botox and fillers. Actually, in India, Botox is the least. They have more dermal fillers or hyaluronic acids than Botox. So if you look at the injectable market in terms, and they maintain that 7% will be the average growth, and it's going to pretty much grow quite well. So India will also grow if we're talking about that. When we look at energy-based devices, though, this is going to give you a 12% growth, and the reason for this is it's the lack of downtime, and it's easy access, it's not as expensive, and people don't have a taboo. Like in India, nobody's going to say that they had a Botox or a filler procedure done. It's still very much of a taboo to talk, whereas in the Western world, people will refer. Like in my business, I will never talk to my patients in a social gathering unless they come up and say hi to me first. The reason is because they don't like to say that, oh, I know this doctor, because they're sensitive, because people might think that she's seeing the doctor for a procedure. So this is how taboo it is in India right now. So until that mentality stays, we can't get really westernized, is what I say. And cosmeceuticals and breast implants are another indicator of the cosmetic industry, because here, if you see cosmeceuticals, it means products that we apply typically on